Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Sever7, and today we are checking out the Kansept Orion, and that's with the ultimate goal of seeing if this is worth adding to your collection or your daily carry rotation. Now, this was supplied by the Lefty Pass-Around group. This was designed by JB Stout, and this was OEM'd by Kansept. Now, I do want to say thank you guys for all the support, the likes, the subs. It's all very appreciated. Please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. All right, so let's take a look at this guy. We've got blue anodized titanium with a very interesting, simple but deep milling pattern. It's like these, I don't know, kind of reminds me of those wacky inflatable arm men, minus the arms. But it's kind of like this, I don't know, I don't want to say teardrop, but you can see it, you get it. At the top, it's got this little swoop, and the designs are uniform on both sides. We do have a deep carry milled titanium pocket clip. We have a T8 pivot, T6s everywhere else, and the T6 screws are not blue ano. They're just raw silver. We do have this really nice blue anodized thumb disc, which works really, really well. It's super comfortable. And the pocket clip is non-reversible, so kind of a bummer. We do have a nice half backspacer back here with some milling on it, which is always a nice touch. It's always nice to see what a company decides to do with the backspacer. It just shows some detail, some creativity, some care. And then we have a little spot for a lanyard, albeit a very bizarre spot for a lanyard. I mean, that is such a weird spot. Is that even meant for lanyards? I don't know if I can say for sure. Okay, well, I mean, you could theoretically use that as a lanyard hole, I guess, but a little bizarre. Now, as far as the ergonomics, and yes, we will talk about this blade, but as far as the ergos go, I've got a solid 4-finger grip, but it's like right at 4 fingers. I don't have room for anything else. Like that's it. I can't really, I mean, like I could, I guess, sit on this right here. Otherwise, I really can't choke up because I will stab myself. And I can't really choke back. So the grip is what it is. Now, there's definitely some hot spots here. You really can't avoid those. I've tried gripping it different ways. I've tried, putting my fingers in different spots, spreading out a little bit, in the hand. But despite their efforts, because they have this kind of scoop going out around the edges where they would be considered a little more, oh, sorry for the shake, guys, where they'd be considered a little more sharp. You still catch this inner piece, and that's what's giving you the hot spots. Now, I will say those hot spots are only if you're bearing down, like if you're squeezing it, right? Some people have tighter grips than others. If I just casually hold this like I would if I were going to cut paper or cut a box, then it's fine. It's perfectly comfortable. Those spots you don't feel them, you're good. But if you apply any pressure, you get like 4 hot spots. And by any pressure, you can like relaxed pressure. I don't know if you can see my hand moving, but relaxed pressure. So it's like, okay, instantly there's like 4 spots that I know if I were to continue doing this in about 2 minutes, they're going to be a little sore, right? So take that for, for what you will. It kind of depends. The importance of that is, dependent upon what you use your knife for. Now, I will say, despite this knife having just a 4-finger grip and no room for anything else, it still feels like a full-size knife. And I think what's giving it that feel is this thumb disc, because you get to go out so much further than just right here. Like being cooped up here makes the knife feel small. But when you get to extend all the way out here, it just kind of gives the illusion that this is like a full-size knife, right? So that's interesting. I mean, it doesn't change the size, but if you like the feel of a full knife, then you know this is going to hit that mark for you. Is that? Yeah, looks like there's some gunk that got stuck to the oil. Let me see if I can wipe that off really quick. It's going to bug me. Yep. Yep. Perfect. This is butt heavy. Not by a ton, but ideally we'd rather be centered like right here instead of back here. So it's not off by a whole lot. My finger's really wiggly for some reason. And you know, you're still pretty close to where you want to be. And overall, the knife is light enough that it's not really too noticeable. But for the people that, you know, it's important to, it's a little butt heavy. And then as far as the jimping, we don't have any, although the thumb disc acts as a pretty good, you know, lock-in spot. Like I can actively put pressure on it and feel like I'm locked into it. Now, the star of the show is absolutely going to be this blade. And that's because we don't, in the budget realm, well, not necessarily budget, it's still an expensive knife, but, you know, typically under 250, under 300, you, minus a few exceptions, one being the American Blade Works Model 1, I want to say Model 1, 2, and 3, as well as the button lock Model 1. His blades are milled, and they're under, I want to say they're like under 350. Okay, so not quite in the same realm, but those are also all American made. And it's done by like a guy and his wife, you know, so those demand certainly a higher price tag. But you know, for this knife being sub $200, to have this much milling on the blade and for it to be, you know, uniform is kind of insane. Because that's more complex machining. That's more like they didn't even do that on. They didn't even add texture to the handle. You know what I'm saying? So like it's more machining. It's more expensive. You know, it's something that definitely has to be factored into the price. But I mean, it you can feel it. Listen, like that's deep milling. Now, is it going to slow you down while you're cutting? Yeah, probably. If you're cutting through paper, no. But if you're cutting through like a cardboard box or something like that, yeah, it's probably going to slow you down a little bit. There might be a little, like 5% drag. Um, you know, I was able to fly through, you know, thinner boxes perfectly fine. Like, you know, monster boxes, like, you know, when you get a case of monster or something like that. That real thin material, I could fly through that stuff. I didn't really have any thicker boxes to cut through. But my experience, I didn't experience any drag. I just imagine that if you were going through thicker material, this would probably slow you down, you know, on the order of maybe 5%. But it's really not a big deal. You can absolutely like hard use this knife. And I think it's well worth the 5% sacrifice in raw cutting performance for what you're getting, right? You know, this milling is something that you would see more in the territory of like five, six plus $100 knives, even on like customs, right? So the fact that JB Stout was able to get Kansept to do it on a production knife, especially one sub $200, is pretty fan freaking tastic. Now we do have it's like a bead blast on the harpoon, and it looks like a hand satin for the flats. We go back to that kind of bead blasted inside the fuller, and then we've got this the same blasting that we have up here. We have along the blade, obviously done before the milling, and then we've got this nice high polish edge. Definitely a lot of detail put into this blade. I would consider this a harpoon. I'm going to say a harpoon. They call it a harpoon clip point. I'm going to call it a harpoon trailing point, which might seem a little ridiculous. But a clip point is literally, it looks like there was a clip taken out. But this has a curve to it, whereas a clip point wouldn't. A clip point would be from wherever the top starts, whether it's a harpoon or otherwise, and it would be a straight line to wherever it's going. This isn't a straight line, so that's why I'm calling it a trailing point. I know probably people are going to tear me up in the comments for that. That's okay. But if you have a stronger argument for it being something else, by all means, let me know. They call this CNC textured. So if you see CNC textured on a description of any of their knives, it's going to have the same thing. Albeit, I think this is a JB Stout specific finish, because I know he does this on some of his customs. So I don't think we're likely to see this on anything else. But they call this officially, it's not, a certain milling pattern. They just call it a CNC textured blade. This is a flat grind, and the blade steel is CPM S35VN. So that's going to be, good edge retention, great corrosion resistance, and it's going to be decently tough. It's definitely tougher than M390, while also being easier to sharpen. Now, as far as the detent goes, son of a gun. The detent is slightly heavy, which I don't mind. We have a little bit of double clutch. Well, maybe it's just tight. Yeah, maybe it's just tight. It's double clutches whenever you go to drop or disengage the blade, and where the flipper tab meets your thumb, you're not past the detent ball. This one technically is. It's just tight enough that it'll stay there. Like, it'll sit just like this, as though it had double clutch, but then when you shake it, it actually starts going down. Which means it does pass the detent ball. It just feels like it doesn't. The action overall, though, it's really good. It's got a nice, snappy action. Thumb disc feels great. With it being on the tighter side, the drop action isn't nearly as good. I could, because I haven't lubed this, and this has gone through the pass around, so I'm willing to bet it's bone dry. So I imagine the drop shut would come, because it wants to drop shut. Like, if I'm being honest, this thing wants to be a drop shut. I'm willing to bet with oil, it wouldn't need nearly as much encouragement to fall shut. Lock bar access is easy, and I can pretty well, I can one shake shut this. I can't do it at this. Oh yeah, I can. I was going to say it's a little hard at this sideways angle, but I don't have to baby it all the way down. I can single shake shut it if the knife's oriented appropriately. Like if I'm, standing up and I'm like this, I can single shake shut it. But overall, action on this is fantastic. Between the two, I would take the thumb disc over the flipper tab all day long. It does have some jimping on the sides here. Get that in focus. And that absolutely helps you, get a hold of the thumb disc and launch it right out. They just did a really, really good job on that. Overall length is going to be 7.14 inches. Blade length is 3.7 inches. And the blade to handle is 0.75 or 75%. Let's go up against a couple of other knives. We have the milled aluminum Civivi Brazen, which is quite a bit larger. I'd say about an inch It looks way more dramatic on your end, but I'd say probably about an inch longer for the brazen. Let's do the Civivi Altus. And the Altus is coming at about, I'd say half an inch shorter. And then the Real Steel Sylph, excellent knife. Everyone should have one. Is coming in. The angle looks different because of, or rather the view looks different because of the angle. But I would say the Sylph is coming in maybe an eighth of an inch longer. It's really close. I say everyone should have this because it's like, what would a Chavez look like if they only had $30 to make it, right? If they had a budget of $30, what would Chavez make? It's this. Yeah, we're not talking about this knife right now, but Real Steel Sylph. Definitely go check it out. Amazing, amazing knife. And they have cool colorways too. I already have a review on that knife. You can go back towards the beginning of my channel and you'll see it. I think it was like my 10th video or something in that neighborhood. And the overall weight of this knife is coming in at 4.06 ounces. All right, so what's the price on this bad boy? It is sub $200. This is coming in at $190, and that's without any discount codes or anything like that. Normally, like Bees, Blades, Lefty, they all have discount codes on the Kansept website. I do not at the moment. But you could also just go straight to White Mountain Knives, and you can enter the discount code S7. I don't get a kickback for that. It just lets him know that I'm, recommending his shop, which is cool for me. And that'll take 10% off, dropping the price to $171. Obviously, there's no taxes and there's no shipping fee. So you're $171 out the door for this knife. Now, to be honest, if this knife was priced at, I would say $199, I would be fine with that. Maybe a little more. Like if this was $215 and then you could do discounts, I wouldn't be bothered by that. But at $190, that's a killer price. But then after the code, getting it to $171, that's absolutely a steal. There's plenty of companies that do plenty of great knives, but if you look at, say, like an Artisan Cutlery, they have amazing knives at $199, right? But you're definitely not getting this CNC textured blade. You're not getting this deep milling, right? And that's a big deal because you're not really going to see this type of milling on any other sub 200 knife, and at least not that I'm aware of. I mean, if you guys know, by all means tell me, but to my knowledge, you really can't find it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's going to be some obscure knives out there that have it, but maybe it's like a shit steel or something. But if this is the kind of thing, because this isn't going to add any performative value, right? So I mean, if you're looking for just raw performance in this neighborhood, you can go get Kansept Takamore, which is Jonathan Styles. You can go get the Kaiser Militaw, right? That's going to be much more performance oriented because it's not going to have this milling on the blade. You can also find a knife that's more comfortable, that's not going to have hot spots if you bear down on it, right? So, I mean, this knife isn't for everybody, but for people that enjoy the novelty and the aesthetic and have other knives that they can use but really want this because they don't have a milled blade in their collection, basically if this knife speaks to you, you will be very happy with it. Right? You know who you are because you're looking at that knife and you're thinking, oh man, I've got to get that. Because, as long as you're not hard using it, the hot spots aren't there, right? As long as you're not squeezing too hard. The action's phenomenal. And then, the milling, the ano, and the blade, it all comes together in a very nice, affordable, and premium package. So for me, I would absolutely, and I've been saying this more and more lately, And maybe it's just because I'm thinking about it more, but I lump knives into either collection pieces, which I don't use, or I lump them into users, which is that they're not part of my collection. I own them, but not every knife I own is part of my collection, right? I just don't look at it that way. But lately, I've been finding these knives that I feel comfortable doing both with, where I want them to be a part of my collection and I want to use them. And this knife, like some others recently, falls into that category of I I want this knife to be in my collection, but for whatever reason, maybe it's the price point. I don't know, but I would have no problem using this and carrying it regularly. For me, I what I enjoy about collecting is getting new pieces, obviously, but keeping them pristine, right? That's my style of collecting. Is getting a knife that I want to keep forever and keeping it perfect. Outside of like, it doesn't sit in a safe all day. Like I'll take my collection pieces out and I'll fidget with them, and carry them and stuff like that. I still do those things. I might cut paper with them, but I want them essentially to stay perfect. Not that I plan on selling them, but I want to know that, in 5 years, I can go back to that knife in the box and I can open it up and, see that it's pristine. But for whatever reason, recently, these knives, like the Poiculo knives, I want them in my collection, but I also want to beat the tar out of them. Couldn't tell you why. But I think it's interesting because it's like my style of collecting is evolving as I do videos. And I'm curious if that's true for you guys. So let me know down in the comments. One, is this something you would carry or collect? But two, have you noticed your style of collecting shifting, changing, for any reason? Let me know down in the comments below if you made it this far. I appreciate you very, very much. Thank you. And, like if you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Albeit this video is longer than most, but subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And you can follow me on Instagram, and you can follow me on TikTok, and that's going to be at SEVRSEVN Sever7 SEVRSEVN. And I update and post regularly there too. So that's all I have for you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Until next time. Peace.